Hello, today we are going to be making chicken and chorizo with queso on top. Now this is a very, very flavorful dish. It will not disappoint your taste buds. So let's get to it today. So you'll need a couple items for your cooking experience today. You'll need a teaspoon. You are going to need 1 to 2 cutting boards, depending on what you want to do, and a good cutting knife. You'll also want, I am using 1 cast iron pan for the chicken chorizo and some of the other ingredients, and I'm also using a non-stick pan for the queso. Now, if you don't have a cast iron pan, don't worry about it. You can also use another non-stick pan, but you will need at least 2 pans for this, or if you want to use one, just cook your chicken and all the other ingredients first before you make the queso, and then clean it and then switch over to the other one. As far as ingredients today, what you will need 2 to 3 pounds of chicken. Now what I've done here is I've cut it mostly into slices. There are a couple chunks in there, and I have salt and peppered this. Now for the salt and pepper, if you want to do this, I suggest cooking it or slicing it the night before, and then salt and peppering it. Put some aluminum foil or some saran wrap over the container. Let it sit in the refrigerator overnight. If you cannot do that, try to do this at least an hour before you cook. This will help the salt and pepper get into the chicken and help make it a little more flavorful. Second item is the chorizo itself. Now this is a pound of chorizo. This is mild chorizo. You can do hot if you would like. That is entirely up to you. Next one for this, you will need an onion. You'll need 2 to 3 bell peppers. I'm only using 2. Now they don't have to be red or green. They can be any colors you like. There are a couple different ones. There's also orange and yellow out there. You can use 2 red ones if you so choose. The last ingredient is a poblano. They're kind of sweet, and I do kind of enjoy it in this dish. Now for the queso, you are going to need 10 ounces white cheddar. You're going to need 8 ounces pepper jack and 8 ounces cream cheese. And I'm going to show you how I cut these. One way, I'm going to shred one of them. I have an attachment for that. We're going to cube the cream cheese and the white cheddar today. You can also cube all of them if you so choose, if you don't have a grater or anything to shred cheese. What you are also going to need is 1 to 2 cups of whole milk. That's it. I mean, it's going to depend on kind of how creamy. The less milk, a little bit thicker it's going to be. A little more milk, it's going to be a little bit more runny. And what you're also going to need is we're going to need that teaspoon. It's going to use for the ground pepper. So you don't want to use too much ground cumin into your queso, but I have found that does give it also a nice little flavor. So what we are going to do first is we are actually going to cut our onions, bell peppers, and poblano. Just set them aside in a bowl for the time being. So that's what we're going to do first. So here's how I like to cut it. The onion. Cut. Those in the composter. Take the skin off. Gotta have long arms so I can do this. Try to get as much skin off as you can. If you have to peel off this first layer to get some of the skin off, be my guest. So what you want to do then is we're going to make kind of holding it together. Oops, I should flip this around. Bigger base is going to be a little bit better to hold it down with. Do that upside down. Chop it. Chop it. It's right through. Just try to be careful with your hands. If you think you need a bigger knife, be my guest. And then slice. Now, what we're going to do is I'm not going to dice this. This is just going to be larger chunks. This is just going to be some larger chunks. If you want to dice it, that is going to be up to you. All right, just going to cut. And I'm just going to chop some of these up. 3, 2. All right. Now, what we're going to do, it's in the container. Now, so we are going to cut the green pepper the way we cut the red pepper. We're going to slice off the end. And what we're going to do is slice off the top. Put those aside. Sometimes they run deep down. Make sure you get to the bottom. And just kind of push it out. All right, the old chunk. Let's try to save as much as you can. This one was a little bit bigger than the red pepper, but not a problem. Take those, put it in our container with the onions. Again, the size chunks you want. If you want to even cut them in half afterwards, like this, it's entirely up to you. This is your dish. Feel free to experiment with how you feel comfortable doing it. Right, now for the Poblano. So on this one, we're just going to cut off the top. I'm not going to cut the bottom on this one. This one kind of fell out, so we're not going to just kind of put that in there. So then what we want to do is cut it kind of down the middle, best you can. If you do feel like cutting off the bottom here and slicing it this way, you can. Open that up. So now what we're going to do is cut that here. Cut that. Cut that out. Don't really want that in our food. So then what we're going to do on this one is cut it like this. Cut it long ways. Again, kind of the size you want. I am actually going to toss the bottom and just go ahead and put it in with the rest. There. All right, so now that we are done cutting our vegetables, this is actually going to go into the get washed. And the knife, I would not recommend using the knife again. I'd go ahead and get yourself another knife for the cheese. And here is the bell peppers and onions and the poblano. See, kind of nice and chunky. You can dice it, like I said, if you like. And so we're going to set this aside for right now. We're going to set this aside for right now, and we're going to go ahead and do the cheese. So what we're going to do on, here's the white cheddar. Actually, so what we're going to do here is we are just going to cut the cheese into chunks. They don't have to be perfect. You don't have to just try to cut them about ½ an inch, I would say. Would be your best option. And pull it through. So what we want to do, we have this one cut here. So take about 3 or 4 of them, and what you just want to do here is kind of cut right down the middle. Pull that out, and then cut it again. So you have little cubes. Now you can buy pre-cubed if you want. This is just how I like to do it. Then what you're going to do is, I'm going to show you here in a minute, is we're just going to take the chunks and we're actually just going to put it in the pan right away. It's just going to sit there while we are cooking our other items. In here. So now we are going to take our cream cheese. It's probably a little hard to see. And we are just going to cut into strips. We don't want the entire chunk to be cooked. We want it to be a little bit easier to melt in there with everything else and mix together. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and put this in the pan with our white cheddar. Now you can cut this into blocks if you would like, just like the white cheddar, but I'm not going to do that as of now. Now for the pepper jack, I am going to use a auto shredder on this. If you have a grater, I would just cut this in half into 2 chunks or maybe into quarters and shred it that way. If you do need more pepper jack for this recipe, I suggest buying individual slices and taking a slice and tearing it up if you would like some extra. So what we're going to do is just cut it into a chunk. Alright, so that's a decent sized chunk. Now if you have an auto shredder, obviously cut it into the size that is going to fit into your shredder. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we are just going to shred our cheese. So what you want to do is take your shredder. I have an auto shredder hooked up to the KitchenAid. So we're going to turn it on. Now what you're going to want for this is just a small bowl and your cheese. Alright, so go ahead. I would just turn it on to a 2 or a 3, maybe a 4. So you want to have it going pretty good. So what we're going to do, and get your item that pushes cheese down, or if you want, this has a small hole that fits the, it's perfect for fitting in there. So just go ahead and put it here. And what you're going to do is just put your cheese here. And then what you're going to need to do also is just push it down. Go ahead and turn it off. Once it is turned and done, now you saw I put about 2 pieces will fit. I wouldn't put any more than that into it and push it down. So then, now if you want to get any extra out of this, what you want to do is go ahead and unplug your KitchenAid or whatever item that is currently doing this. Go ahead and take this out. And pop, you can actually pop this out by holding the little leveler here. Just still be careful. If you want to wear gloves, good idea. Now you're going to have some pieces, and what I would do is just take those pieces and kind of put them in with the cheese. All right. So now that's done. All right. So as you can see, there is our cheese. Right now that is the cubed white cheddar and the cream cheese. So what we're going to do now is let's go ahead and dump this cheese in. Go ahead and dump the pepper jack cheese in. Now what you want to do, take a measuring cup, get your milk, measure out. I'm going to do, for now, we can always come back and add more if we so choose. I'm going to go ahead and add, hard to see, 1 1/4 cup. Sprinkle that. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and add about another 1/4 to 1/3 right now. Now for the cumin, you do not want to overdo it. On the cumin, you really don't need to. This just adds a little bit more flavoring to it. I'm just going to take a teaspoon and just kind of dump it in. Maybe a little bit more. So now what you want to do with this, before anything else, go ahead and get a whisk. And what we're just going to do is just kind of push it around. Actually get that cumin kind of going in there a little bit. Just going to kind of let it all kind of sit together for the time being. We're going to cook that here in a little bit. Alright, now set this down. Alright, hello there. So now we are going to actually cook the chicken and the chorizo together. So first get your pan, get a wooden spatula, and then you're going to want to turn your oven to medium high. What you're also going to want to do is pour about a teaspoon of vegetable oil or canola oil. Just kind of let it sit in there. That's going to help with the turkey or with the chicken. Just let that heat up for a couple minutes. Alright, so now that the pan is heated, you can kind of see the oil glistening a little bit. Also, if you put your hand over it, you'll start feeling some heat coming off of it. It's not too hot, so we can give it probably another minute. Once you start to see it, if you start seeing it smoking, then that would definitely be a good time to probably put your chicken in. So kind of see some smoke coming off it. I've had this for a long time, so there's a good. It's definitely been seasoned for a very long time. So. So I can kind of feel some heat starting to come off it. So now we are going to actually put the chicken into the cast iron. As you can see, I'm using tongs with the chicken itself. Now once you start putting it in, you're going to hear some sizzling, and you just want to be careful. Don't just drop it in there. Kind of just set it in there, gentle. If you need to adjust the heat while you're cooking, you can. So you can see the chicken is cooking. You want to get a nice layer so it's all touching the pan. Look at that. Nice and cooked. Kind of, even though you have some oil in here, you still kind of want to kind of move it around, make sure that chicken is getting cooked. If it doesn't seem like it is. Alright, so I'm actually going to turn it up a little bit to get the chicken cooking. So I wouldn't turn it necessarily all the way on high. I would just keep it maybe a little bit on the higher end of medium high, and that's it. Right. So just at this point, you just really want to monitor your chicken, make sure that it's cooking evenly. You don't necessarily need to touch it every 5 seconds, just every minute or so. Just kind of move it around, just make sure it's not sticking to the pan if you put a good enough amount of oil in there. And you can do this with a nonstick as well. Now you can see some of your chicken pieces are starting to brown a little bit. This means they are almost done. If you are worried, you can kind of cut. You saw me earlier kind of cut into the pieces of chicken. See if the insides are done. Now these are kind of thinnish slices, so they shouldn't be cooking. They shouldn't be taking too long to cook overall. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is turn it down just a little bit. Now we are going to introduce the chorizo. You kind of see it's a pile right now, so what we're going to do now is just take our wooden spoon and start just breaking it up. So just go ahead and start breaking it up in chunks, kind of get it combined in with the chicken. Alright, so now that the chorizo is cooked in with the chicken, just a couple minutes, you can see the chorizo has turned like a brown color from its red color. So it's also cooking the juices in the chicken, so the chicken is going to absorb some of that flavoring. See, so now, since I did not have a big enough pan to add the vegetables in with this, we're going to do this in a two-step. So you want to take a bowl or a serving dish, realistically whatever you have. And what we are going to do I'm just going to take the chicken and chorizo, dump it in here. Just be careful not to spill any out, which I did. So now, once that is done, go ahead and put your cast iron back. Put just a little bit more. Go ahead and put a little bit more oil back in your pan. Just be careful. Now the vegetables are not going to take that much longer to cook. Just kind of. And then what you want to do for your chicken and chorizo is you're just going to put some aluminum foil over it. You don't need to push it down too hard because the vegetables will not, everything else will not take that long to make. So, alright, head back over to our pan, what we're going to do is take your vegetable, kind of put it in there. And you can see it's filling up the entire thing. Obviously what we're looking for here, we need the onions to be a little translucent. The bell peppers as well and the poblano are going to lighten in color a little bit. Now if you'd like to here, you can put some oregano on top of this and go with that. I am not going to this time, but if you would like to, that would be a good preference. So once you start to smell some fragrance, you will smell some of the onions and the oil cooking together. Some of the onions are starting to become a little more translucent, so you know you're almost done. So just kind of let it push it around, let it sit there. Alright, I think we're done. Got some nice smell going on. We've got onions are starting to become more translucent. What we want to do now, set that down and take the aluminum off. Go ahead and mix it together. Get it nice and mixed. Get everything in there. All right. Let that sit there. Now what you're going to want to do is you are going to want to put some aluminum foil over this. Aluminum foil that you were just using, you want to keep this as hot as possible. Alright, so now we're going to finish up with the queso. Alright, so now we are going to start on the final item, the queso. So as you can see, all our ingredients are mixed together. So what you want to do here is you want to turn it on to medium high again. Medium to medium high. And then just kind of start whisking together. I would not recommend putting this on high first and then going down. All right, you can see it starting to thicken up with the cheese. All right. Everything's starting to come together. You can tell it's not, the chunks are starting to disappear. There's pretty much no cream cheese in there. Still a couple chunks, but it will start coming out here in a little bit. You can kind of see it's starting to kind of melt. It's kind of thick right now, but that's fine. We've got a lot of cheese in there. Not quite as much milk as I had. I have about 1.5 cups right now, if you remember from earlier. You can see it's kind of chunky. You can also use this for chips or any other dish you would like to put queso on. Kind of, can't see that, it's kind of thickening up quite a bit. So what you want to do, you start seeing smoke come off it. I just turned it down a little bit. It's actually almost done already. You can kind of see that was very quick once you had it going. You can see it's kind of just falling off the ladle or the whisk. You still got a couple chunks. Those are going to melt here soon. Just kind of, if you see them, just kind of push them. Try to break them up a little bit so you can get it going. If you want a little bit of chunk, that's fine as well. Alright. Now I said you could, if you want to add a little bit more milk at this stage, I would. Kind of not make it quite as thick. I'll kind of water it down a little bit. Now I have tried this with it a little bit more watery and I did like it. This will be a little bit thicker, but that's fine. It's kind of what we want. We just want something that's going to cover it nice and give it that nice flavoring as well with the chorizo. Alright, I actually think, let's give it another minute or so, just kind of whisk it together or just kind of give it a break for a second. With your chicken and chorizo, might want to get a ladle for this actually. Pick up a ladle here. Go ahead and just kind of pour it on. Just kind of pour it all over. It's fine. We're going to mix it together here in a little bit. A second. Ahead and it's kind of covering it. That's fine. That's what you want. Together. It's kind of more like a soup at this point. You could actually probably add a little bit more of the chicken and chorizo together, and that's fine. It's okay. All right, so we're kind of mixed together. I think it's good. Now the queso is becoming a little bit redder because of the chorizo. That's fine. It's just going to help impart the flavor a little bit more. So. Alright, as you can see, we are done at this juncture. Like I said, you could probably cut the queso in half if you like. If not, you got some extra queso. I know it kind of looks more like a soup. That's kind of how I like it. So, if you do like this, Please like and let me know if you want more of these kind of items. All right, thank you.